Ladies and gentlemen, we now continue, and we're going to speak about a subject that we touched on yesterday a bit with Michael Liebrich in his keynote speech, the grid and storage from net zero to net to energy security. And of course, across Europe, as we've been seeing, electricity demand is soaring from industry, transport, and now data centers. Our grids are feeling the pressure, and of course, this couldn't be more relevant than, of course, where we are here on the Iberian Peninsula. Back in April, they were plunged, both Portugal and Spain, into darkness, a massive blackout with 60 million people without power. Of course, this was a real wake-up call for Europe. So today, we are asking that big question once again: how do we build a backbone of clean energy economy that's not just green, but resilient, flexible, and also secure? And for that, we have an outstanding panel bringing together industry leaders, tech innovators, and public financiers, all working to keep the lights on and hopefully as well the grids on too. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming what is a truly global panel shaping the future of grids and energy storage, representing a globally diverse set of experiences spanning Asia, Mitsubishi, North America, GE, and Europe, Siemens, Skeleton, and of course the EIB. Please join me in welcoming our first panelist, Tetsuya Shinohara, Executive Vice President and Chief Regional Officer for EMEA at Mitsubishi Corporation, based in London. He brings lessons from Japan's resilient, disaster-prone islands, experience from France, Senegal, and Germany. Welcome to you. Hi. Elena Wein, that we've heard from the European Investment Bank, representing the public finance engine that's helping deliver these crucial investments at scale. And Elena was appointed Deputy Director General of the Operations Directorate at EIB last year. Welcome once again. Great to have you. Andrei Buruchaki from GE Power Conversion in Paris, bringing insights on upgrading legacy infrastructure and integrating renewables across vast decentralized systems. Andrei Buruchaki is Chief Product and Technology Officer at GE Power Conversion. Andrei, welcome to you. Luis Marsal, Head of Smart Infrastructure and Sustainability at Siemens Portugal, driving digital grids and future-proof infrastructure that position Portugal, hi, at the heart of Europe's clean energy transition. Welcome, Luis. And finally, we have Tavi Madiberg, CEO and co-founder of Skeleton Technologies, a pioneer in ultra-fast energy storage, powering Europe's next generation of grid stability and efficiency, a company that he formed actually at the age of 21 years old. Fantastic. Great to have you all here. All right, we are going to kick off with a very brief question right now. What do you think? And I'm going to put this to you first, actually, Luis. The one thing that you believe that Europe must get right to make its grid clean, secure, and stable, we hope.
Unfortunately, didn't listen too well. But, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation and the participation here. It's a pleasure to be with this panel. When we have listened to the speakers before that have talked about the relevance of Europe towards this transition, there's some base statements that I would like to share. First is that this transition demands a lot of things that didn't exist in the energy system in the past. Different technologies, different speed of decisions. And the sense of urgency is getting bigger and faster. But at the same time, we need to live with what exists. So in energy systems, there are no technology disruption. We need to live with the systems as is and develop it on top. So we need to live with technologies with 60, 70 years, and to live with technologies every year will have small jumps.
Luis, if I may interrupt, because this is a great point. If I understand you clearly, the technology in Europe has to evolve. You can't disrupt it, right? That's
Yes.
what you're saying. And I'm not sure if you heard my question at the beginning, because there was a bit of a sound issue, I believe you said. Given that point, what is the one thing that could actually catapult things and speed things up for Europe, given what you're saying, that you can't disrupt it, it has to evolve naturally?
That's why when we talk about this panel, is we need to, as a sustainability society, if we need to decarb and electrify the world or create those alternatives that are greener at the end, then you need to have the proper technologies on top. So in order to do that, you need to have more complex, the grid becomes more complex and hard to balance, so you need to have new kind of technologies, like from skeleton, like storage, to give the proper acknowledge of all this new way of manage the energy systems. So first is complexity. Then if we have more complexity, also brings another topic that will be more electro-intensive industries consuming more and new power. Just to have a sense about the demand of data centers all over the world, but here in Portugal, the current demand is 3 times the peak of the country. That's what is over the table. So how can we adapt fast in a journey that seems long, but the speed of making that happen is really fast? So this is the challenge. How can we bring together all these different needs? Also, it depends a lot about regulation, because at the end, regulation is the #1 obstacle of innovation. And if we look for the role of the regulators in Europe, the entities that in each country regulates, they have a purpose. The purpose is to protect the interests of security and costs of energy for the citizens. So what they do is to mitigate the investments in order not to impact the increase of the costs. So this is, at the end, the governments and the European Commission is pushing to make the investments, to have the innovation, but the regulators are pushed to not increase the prices for the consumers. So this is an opposition of forces that at the end, who will pay the investments? And then by principle, we many times hear people talking about costs. But at the same time, we need to talk about investments.
Okay.
And that's also, as a principle, we talk about different things.
Absolutely, Luis. Thank you so much for setting the scene for Portugal and also Europe more broadly. I want to come to you now, Mr. Tetsuya Shinohara, because of course you bring us a perspective from Japan, made up of islands, disaster-prone. What one thing do you think Europe can learn from Japan to make its grids secure and stable and clean?
Should I say one?
Yeah, one thing. Well, I mean, Luis gave a few more, but you can...
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, so, yes, if I would say in one phrase, Europe needs 3 arrows. This is Japan's saying. So, policy, market, and technology to fly in the same direction. This is one important thing for Europe, I think. Yeah.
So 3 arrows that they need.
Yes.
Thank you.
So may I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so I think both Japan and Europe facing the same challenge in terms of pursuing decarbonization, energy security. So I believe Japan's experience in balancing both challenges may provide several insights to Europe. As you may recall, in March 2011, a massive earthquake in eastern part of Japan revealed the limitations of Japan's power system. In other words, there was sufficient electricity nationwide, but the power transmission infrastructure between regions were limiting the ability to supply other regions to supply electricity to eastern part of Japan where it is needed. And the power companies are divided by region. And there was no nationwide organization responsible for this. So in order to tackle this challenge, OCTO, OCCTO, this is the abbreviation of Organization for Cross-Regional Coordination of Transmission Operators, was established. This OCTO is a public organization that is responsible for nationwide supply-demand balancing and grid development planning. This broad coordination framework has enabled Japan to achieve both stable supply and efficiency. I think this overlaps with the challenge facing Europe today. And alongside another liberalization, Japan has also developed institutional mechanisms to encourage long-term investment. In addition to wholesale electricity markets, Japan has introduced capacity markets, adjustment markets, and non-fossil value trading schemes to support investment in flexible and low-carbon power sources. I believe this multi-layered market design is also attracting interest in Europe. It's also important to mention about the policy, industry, and technological development has been promoted in a consistent manner under the 7th Basic Energy Plan by Japanese government. This consistent environment has supported long-term investment decisions by private companies.
Okay.
So, in conclusion, as Mitsubishi Corporation, we wish to deepen our future cooperation, particularly from the perspective of balancing decentralization and stable energy supply and promoting long-term investment through public-private collaboration. Thank you.
This is something Europe can learn from Japan, these 3 points you mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Ina, we move to you. What is that one thing that Europe must get right, do you feel, with regards to its grids?
One thing. So I could talk about, again, investment mobilization, financing, regulation, simplification, but I'm going to say that we need to think big and out of the box. And what I mean by that is to think beyond national borders, right? So for me, we will need integrated, interconnected grid to enable electrification and improve our energy security. You mentioned what happened in Portugal and Spain this summer, and as you said, it was a wake-up call. We really have to invest to interconnecting the European grid to improve its resilience and ultimately enable the electrification. There is no low-carbon transition without transmission Europe-wide. And ultimately, the energy security is key for the European competitiveness as well. So again, think big, think interconnected. That's the one thing I would say.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you so much, Elena. Andre, we move to you. That one thing that Europe needs to get right to have that stability, security, and of course, clean grid.
Yeah. First of all, happy to be here. Hello to everyone. Without repeating what you have already heard, there is one thing I want all of us to remember before leaving this room. Without a modernized grid, it would be no energy transition. So, how it would happen?
Say that again, without
a modernized grid grid is already 67 years old. It has been built to bring central generation to the usage through transmission distribution. And today, with renewable energy, you need a both-way direction. The user could become producer as well. And look, today, almost 50% of the electricity in Europe is already renewable. If you add nuclear on top, it would be 75%. Of course, my country, France, is helping with 50% of the nuclear production here. But what is happening? 1 terawatt, more than 1 terawatt, I think the last number is 1.7 terawatt of renewable energy are queuing to connect to the grid. Why? Because the grid is not ready, because there is no capacity. We need all of us united at European level to bring this modernized grid a reality for tomorrow.
All right, we're going to talk about how to do that later on in the panel. Tavi, I want to ask you, from your perspective, that one thing that you've heard the comments here that you think Europe needs to get right now.
Yes. Firstly, we need to understand three main things. And first question to the audience, that in the European energy market, on 23rd of February 2022, there was a new market entrant who changed the game. Who was that? Who entered the European grid market? Anybody? Yes, it was Mr. Putin. So if we talk about energy security, we are not talking just about the laws of physics, and we are not talking about the loads of renewables and data centers. We need to make sure that we understand that this is really a security matter, and we need to protect against that. That's topic one. Topic two now. Has anybody taken a car here in the 1950s? No, nobody. I haven't as well. But you know, in the 1950s, no car had a seat belt. But we were still like driving around, and nobody was really complaining all the time that I will die every week because there's no seat belt. It wasn't thought of. But now European grids is facing the similar situation, because we all understand that, okay, we have more interconnectedness, so on, but what is the fact? We don't have coal, we don't have gas so much that would keep up the inertia. This means that from renewables you have constant fluctuations and you need the safety belt, and this is what Skeleton is offering. In German transmission system operators, we have 200 megawatt units for 1 second power to keep the inertia stable. And this is what avoids issues what we had in Spain. Now, if we start thinking about it, what is happening? You talked about the blackout earlier.
Sorry, Tavi, did you say inertia?
Yes.
Inertia is one of the things
Yes.
to blame. Okay.
Exactly. And now, we talked about the blackout in Spain, but you know that when you have a blackout, then worst thing what you could do is that you try to take vodka and Red Bull at the same time. Has anybody tried it? No, I have, I will be honest, but not today. But the point is the following. We have increase of renewables. We have the vodka. Okay, it's maybe nice standalone. But when we take Red Bull and which is the AI data centers, because AI data centers, they are not like regular data centers which have a stable load. They have constant fluctuations. And when we put these two things together with Mr. Putin entering the market, then it's clear we need to invest. And now question is how and what to do. I think first topic is following. When we make the decision to invest, and if we buy everything from US and China, then is it really energy security? Is it something what we can rely on, that the components from China, if something happens, then Mr. Xi will call and say, we are willing to help, we will immediately send it, don't worry about it. Maybe it is so, but we can't rely on that. But the last topic is that in Europe, we are always in a defensive mindset. You know, in the battery industry, the Chinese came, we said, now we do something about it as well. In AI, we are not making the investments, and when we say, now we need to catch up. But we need to change the mentality. We need to think about what winning looks like, not only defending European security. So what does winning look like? We need to have European content. We have companies here from Siemens, ABB, GE, Hitachi, Mitsubishi, global leaders. And if we want to win, we need to have the technologies which differentiate globally, so these investments are not just defending and saving Europe, it's about creating the export potential. And last but not least, I think that we need to look at who are our natural allies. And it's great we have here a gentleman from Mitsubishi, because Europe and Japan, we are facing similar type of issues. We have issue of Russia, you have issue of China, and we need to talk about these topics. We don't have big natural resources in Japan or Europe, but if we want to win, when we cannot just talk that we make the investments, we need to see what is in it for our business, because the only sustainable way is to have the sustainability on the bottom line. And if we want to have it, then we need to invest, but we need to make sure that it's done in Europe, for Europe, but also for the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tavi. I want to go back to you, Luis. What do you think makes Europe's grids so unique, and what are the biggest challenges that they're facing? And I remember on our briefing call, you said that we have to stop talking and actually start doing. So how do you put that actual doing, in that frame?
Maybe I will start with a practical example, maybe two. So, European Commission decides the directive of cybersecurity regarding NIS2 that should be implemented by law until October 24 on all the regions of the European Community. Till now, more than half of the countries didn't have the law over the table.
Really?
Just to give you one example. So there's a decision or a directive, then there is no decision. Second example, also the SF6 limitation of use starting 1st of January. And Commission European, by complaining of some of the countries, decide or is under discussion not to go forward with the decision. And that's the point. There's at the end, I miss collaboration. I think that is the word that is missing, because the European Community is entity, but then all the countries have their own independency or individuality.
So just to clarify, I know we could touch on this later, but cybersecurity-wise, how safe are Europe's grids?
How safe?
How safe are they and secure with regards to cybersecurity?
In cybersecurity, oh God.
Okay. Oh, that's what you mentioned?
I should say the following. I have, as a citizen, strong bad feelings.
All right. We'll leave it there, maybe.
The topic is, it's an urgent topic.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be done things. But if you, I will not talk about all the regulations, but I mentioned that before. You know the amount of money is in the tariffs that we citizens pay in Portugal for cybersecurity? Anyone knows? 0. So there's no money for that. Okay? And the companies, the TSOs and DSOs along Europe, are regulated companies. They have profit limitations. So how? So again, at the end, I want to give you, Maria, and to the others, one clear message. There's no lack of technology available today, even in Europe. Companies like Schatten and others, or GE, or Mitsubishi, or ABB, Schneider, whatever companies, technology is there. But there's no decisions. There's no actions, in fact. That's, for me, my concern. You see lots of announcements. Every day there's newspapers showing new things. Lots of people talking about energy systems. I'm sorry to say, maybe it's a little bit rushed from my part, but I think there's a very few people that know what they are talking about. In these last years, the last buzzword was flexibility in the networks.
Okay.
Before that, it was smart grids. Before that, intelligent networks, and so on.
Please, I just want
new.
Tavi to jump in, I think.
Yeah, I think here we talk a lot about renewables and we need to go renewable. That's clear. But now we need to talk about the other side of the coin as well. What have renewables done to the European grids? And we need to be very transparent about it. So if you look at from year 2000, what is keeping up in power grid the stability, the frequency? This is a phenomenon called inertia. Because you have rotating mass, in coal and nuclear, you keep it stable. Now, we have taken away that stability, because let's be clear that solar panels, they create no inertia. And this has happened not only in Spain or Portugal, but even in France, the inertia is down. And this is one topic where we just need direct investment. And here we are not talking about 50 billion. We are talking about across Europe investments of maybe 6 to 8 billion in terms of securing that frequency with the transmission system operators to solve the entire issue. But I think the key, what was highlighted earlier, is that we need to address the topic of grids in more detail. It cannot be just general policy, we need to fortify that. Because let's be honest, what will happen? Each company will try to sell the most expensive component possible because that's good for business, and you can't blame the companies for that. But I think that the key topic is that we solve this one single topic which is created by renewables, and we take care of that. And I think the topics highlighted on cybersecurity, that we need to again remember that we have in ENSTO-E a new member, and this is secret member, and that is Mr. Putin. And if we don't do anything about it, then the cybersecurity question where we now save, maybe we save per year a few hundred million across Europe. But this can result in terms of tens or even hundreds of billions of economic damage. Let's make no mistake that what would you do if you wouldn't have electricity for 72 hours? The modern society collapses without electricity.
Correct.
And that we need to keep in mind, and this is not a topic just for power grid people or renewables people.
It's everyday people.
It's really a question of European security, and we need to go on with the investments.
Absolutely. Andre, you want to jump in, and then I'll come to Elina.
Yeah,
briefly.
what Tavi and Luis are trying to explain, I think we have invested on the capacity through renewable. I gave the example, the queue is here, and we have forgotten to invest on the grid. It's called flexibility, it was called smart grid, intelligent grid, whatever, but we have to do it. And cybersecurity is part of it. We need flexibility, security, and it cannot be done at the country level. It must be done at the European level. We need more interconnectivity between the grids, between different countries. Technologies are available. I think subsidies are also available at the European level. Now we need the willingness to go to action.
All right, lots of questions for you there. Elina, you were nodding. What are your thoughts on what they're saying?
Yeah, I just wanted to, from the perspective of a financier, yes, the investment needs are massive and they are multifaceted, right? So it's not only about capacity expansion, it's about resilience, it's about cybersecurity, it's about smart grids, and not to forget about the value chain, the technology producers, and Tavi mentioned investment in the whole grid value chain in Europe, important. And financing is, of course, one lever that can mobilize investment. Last year, the EIB financed in total 8.5 billion of grid investment in Europe, and that actually accounted for 40% of the investments made. So you can see that we are lagging far behind what the investments needs are in comparison to what we are investing currently annually. And then the financing challenge indeed is there. We need smart incentives, right? We need a toolkit for funding. It's not only about patient long-term capital, it is also equity and blended finance, de-risking instruments, and that is what EIB is there for. We also need capital markets to integrate. TSOs could benefit for better access to capital markets through bond markets. And at the same time, I think what is really important to consider, and I think it was mentioned, that currently the European grids are very fragmented, and that also poses a financing challenge. How we fund TSOs and DSOs in different markets is dependent on the market structure and the capacity of these entities to implement investments and borrow. So my message is here that financing is an important piece of the puzzle, but we need to think again big, and we need to innovate also in terms of financing. And while we need Europe-wide solutions, we also need to think locally to solve the financing problem.
Thank you. Tavi, 1 second. I just want to get Tetsuya to jump in. We've heard the challenges here that we're talking about from Europe. How do you think Japan can actually contribute to Europe's challenges?
Japan's contributions.
Yes, how do you think Japan can?
As I mentioned earlier, so we have established a nationwide, developing nationwide grid operation and coordination frameworks through the October with that area. So as well as systems and markets and technology in parallel. So I think for Europe, I believe that is equally as important to build systems and market design that investors, industries, and policymakers can trust.
Yeah, that trust.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Tavi.
Yeah. So in the 90s, there was a saying that if you want to know how the future looks like, go to California. I don't know if it's still true, but if you go to Santa Clara, for example, 60% of energy in Santa Clara is used for AI. And now in Europe, what is the issue for us? Our energy prices are already very high for the consumer, for the industry. Adding AI to the mix will further raise the prices. And at the moment, the situation is that 40% of energy in AI is just burned off. It's wasted. And what we else see is that from the power capacity, because AI peak shaving the peaks is not done. We are over-investing in the power grid by a factor of 2. And now this has become the core business of Skeleton in US, the AI infrastructure. How to cut those peaks to make AI cheaper, but more energy efficient. But now what is the difference in Europe and US? Let's be very clear. In US, nobody cares about energy efficiency. And why is that? Because it's about the speed to market, it's about the compute power. But in the cost structure, the energy is maybe 10% of the cost. But in Europe, we don't have low energy prices. So we need to be here smart with the regulation. And usually if somebody says that, okay, Europe is like a regulatory superpower, then it's complete like oxymoron, but how can you regulate yourself to be a superpower? But I think in AI, if we do not have the regulation in energy efficiency, what will happen? We will drive up the prices for consumers. We will make the industry even less competitive. Same thing from the power grid side. The US hyperscalers, they have the capital. We don't care about the power connection cost that much. But we, as European taxpayers, we will need to pay for that in the grid. And when we don't have the funding for the right investment of interconnectedness, of cybersecurity, also of taking care of the renewables and the stability issues. So I think that topic is that we are always in a defensive play, you know. At the moment, we are also discussing that what we need to do today. But if you look 5 years into the future with AI data centers, then let's be clear, US invests $300 billion per year in AI data centers, and Europe invests less than $10 billion. So the issue has not even hit us.
Say those numbers again. How much the US is investing and how much Europe is investing in data centers?
330 billion in US. Europe, less than 10 billion.
Wow, so 300 billion
Yes.
in the US and less than 10 billion in the...
30 times
Wow.
difference. And if you look at the population, if you look at the size of the economy, then it's clear that the techno-colonialism is not just fancy keyword of the American alt-right or the fancy keyword of some governmental linked politician. It's really happening. And we need to invest in AI data centers. And in grid planning, we are not ready at all for that. We are not thinking about energy efficiency. And when we are not thinking about the value chain, out of AI data center investments, what do you think how much stays in Europe, percentage-wise? Anybody? You're looking at less than 10%. We are paying to US companies, we are paying to Asian companies. And if we are not serious about the value chain of grid and AI infrastructure, which, by the way, is very similar, we see same players in terms of Siemens, Hitachi, GE, Mitsubishi, who are playing in that space. If we don't take it serious, when Europe will be the world's largest technology museum, it's very nice. We have the best espresso macchiato, definitely, in the world. We have the best wine tastings. Yesterday evening, for example, was very good. But the thing is that we need to now get really serious about these topics. And one thing is from investment side, but the other thing is we cannot be naive. We cannot announce we have AI data center investment, so happy. But actually the money goes out of the country and the energy prices goes up. We need to see what is in it for Europe.
Yeah. You mentioned a point there that European taxpayers will have to pay for the issues with the grid and those losses. That is that's a big topic. And I just want to speak about the emerging technologies and solutions that there are right now to address the grid challenges. Of course, you specialize in ultracapacitors. How can that help stabilize what we're seeing right now?
Yeah. We are the safety belt of renewables. So we provide building blocks which helps to stabilize the grid, and we are designed into the German transmission system operators. Spain, Italy are coming next, and what we take care of. We all know that we have fluctuations, seasonal fluctuations, hours of fluctuation, but already for millisecond time frame, or a few seconds, what we saw in Spain can cause a cascading blackout. And this is exactly what we take care about. And we always say that renewables, they do need a safety belt. But the important aspect here is following. Think about the supply chain now. We use no lithium, no manganese, no cobalt, only materials produced in Europe. And I think that long term, this will become more and more critical, but we don't only think about, can we solve the issue here and now? We think about that, will that issue be solved in Europe in 5, 10, or 20 years' time? And second topic, in AI infrastructure, we got the energy spent by 40% by shaving the peaks of the AI loads.
Thank you. Andre, I want to go to you. What technologies work best, do you think, for short versus long duration needs?
I think Tavi explained, we have different kind of technology already available. At the extreme longest duration is battery storage. And again, technologies are available. The cost, we have seen it, the cost of the battery storage has dropped over years, and now we are almost as competitive as a normal solution, fossil energy solution. And we need to bring this base again in the queue. In Europe, we have to connect to the grid to make them connectable. At the shortest level of stability for the grid, we have the supercap solution. Typically, Skeleton is developing. And from all this range, typically in Vernova, the way we help our customer is first designing what's exactly their need through consulting approach. Then we bring all the solution from the generation to battery storage and also to transportation and distribution. And finally, we do the services of that. So technologies are available, and we are not the only one. We have all together to bring that happen. Back to the modernization of the grid. What is this modernization? I think flexibility, and we need to ask all the new electro-intensive industry, and I am putting here the data centers as well. The old data center, which was a predictable load through a normal IT system, is gone. Now, we are more talking about AI factories with high variation of the peak load, and we need to ask this new data center to bring the flexibility back to the grid. That's the only way to become self-sufficient at European level for the future data center we want to host.
So flexibility to the data center. Okay, Andrew, thank you. Elina, from the bank's perspective, which deserves more focus right now? Would you say short-term or long-term storage? And how does that fit in with your wider resilience strategy?
That's an interesting question. Before I dive deeper into the topic, let me just start by saying that, yes, the technologies are available, but still, approximately 1/3 of the technologies that we need for the clean energy transition are at the innovation or demo stage. So we need to still continue innovating, and as we also invest and scale up existing technologies. The scale-up challenge is big, we know, but at the same time, we need to continue innovating. And with that, EIB is actually technology neutral. That's my second message to you. We are there ready to support promising new technologies, to bring them to demo phase, absorb some of those risks through our financing that the private sector may not be ready to yet take, and then support these companies to scale up. So again, technology neutrality. And that brings me then to your question, short or long-term, long duration batteries. I think we need both, to be honest. I mean, for the short term, for short duration, I mean, we see actually those technologies are already picking up and bringing value to industries, but also to consumers. I was just reading yesterday an article where they mentioned that the short duration battery and energy storage market in Germany is booming. People who have installed and businesses who have installed renewable capacities, they really want to take everything out of their investment, and they are now also investing in storage. And that's really good news, and those technologies are already rather mature. Then pivoting to the long duration batteries, they are necessary for stability of the grid going forward, and also for industries. The technologies are maybe not as mature yet as we see in the short duration space. And there it's again on demonstration, further innovation and scaling up. I will finish by noting that, for example, we have, for example, financed a really interesting venture in Italy, Energy Dome, a company that is developing and starting to deploy long-duration batteries, benefiting the industry in particular.
Thank you so much, Elina. Great to hear what you're doing. Luis, I want to go to you. You mentioned earlier you believe in evolution, not disruption of the existing systems, but what does that mean for the current grids and the challenges that you've been hearing?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is to make, to have really an orchestra of all the context, all the data, all the assets, all the participants in the grids. So if you think today that from our houses there's a device called a meter that always existed, that even yet in some countries nowadays is still being read by someone that goes and checks the figure of the consumption. On the other side, you may have intelligent devices, smart meters that provide you the data. So millions of devices sharing every day a significant amount of data. Then you go upper in the layers, different layers of the networks, putting decentralized production in the houses of the people, or even storage in the houses. And you go for companies, campus or industry, you have the same context. You have a huge amount of electrical chargers, you have PV power plants, you may have power generators, storage systems, and so on. And all these devices are smart in the sense they have connectivity. And in order to have this orchestra running in the perfect way or in a sense of security that is in the right balance, this demands more technology above. And that is basically, I mean, the main challenge, to keep putting more technology within the infrastructure and at the same time be able to manage all together. So that's, I think, there's an important two dimensions there. One is new assets like storage system, whatever they may be, okay? Because hydropower plant can be a storage system, or gas, some kind of gas, fuel gas, like hydrogen or biofuels can be alternatives of storing that systems. But you need also to have a different mindset and behavior from all the parts. You talked a little bit before about energy efficiency. The trend of energy efficiency in Europe is that the big measures has been taken, but now the speed of the efficiency of those measures are getting down. So now we need to think what else can be done, and I push about flexibility. Yes, indeed, there are things to be done, because flexibility don't mean the same for all the different parts of the ecosystem. For in our houses, maybe we can be flexible to use some devices in certain moment of the day, or charge the cars also in some moments of the day. For a TSO, it's another thing, is how can I ramp up the capacity of my lines to bring more power in a certain moment of the day. And for the distributor, even is something different. So the words don't mean the same for all the parts. At the end, and for me, it's very important to leave this message. Innovation is the engine of competitiveness. We need to keep pushing for innovation in all the different, with all the creativity, with all the power of Europe. I think that you put the question before, what makes us a little bit different in cause, and I don't say what I really think. I think that is the strength of Europe. There's so much creativity, diversity, people with different challenges. All together, that's what makes the difference, and that is the power factor of Europe.
That's a strong positive message. Thank you, Luis. Tavi, you want to jump in briefly?
Yes. So I think a key topic here is that we are still in the defensive position and not in the winning mindset. And I feel we are sleeping at the wheel without the safety belt on. And in order to see whether this is the case, does anybody in the audience know what is the largest European AI company? Let's leave ASML aside, but what's the actual largest European AI company?
Mistral.
Anybody?
Mistral.
Mistral was, I think, one, but Mistral is not the right answer. This is Yandex Russia taxi company. And why is that? It's now called Nebius, but it was the Yandex Russia ride-hailing company who in 2022 had one data center in Finland. Same company, same management under different name. Now we are 30 billion company listed in Amsterdam because Yandex was listed in Amsterdam. And this, what we need to change, we cannot go post factum and say that, by the way, that Yandex Russia is the largest European AI company and buying technology from US and China. Job well done here. We need to be more proactive and trying to understand what is going on in the market, because we should be really European players. And you know, at Skeleton, we have come to the realization is that if nobody else will take that challenge, maybe we have to do it ourselves. Because I think the key is that everyone in the audience, you need to think about what do you do in terms of AI, and not just that, can you make nice pictures or can you send a PowerPoint with AI? This will be core of our lives, but our businesses. And we need to make sure that if Europe is winning, and we don't win in AI, then we will be a technology museum which might not even have the best espresso macchiato anymore. And that's a risk. Yeah, back to you.
So if we don't win in AI, Europe will become a technology museum. All right, we are counting down to the end of our session. I just want to end with this question for all of you, and I want to start with you, Tetsuya. What is the one thing that you feel that we need to get immediately right? And we're really sensing here that the urgency, as Tavi said, we are sleeping at the wheel without the seatbelt on, he said. But just to build on that urgency, what is that one thing we need to get immediately right to future-proof the grid in Europe?
Okay, so I believe it is important to build institutional confidence, trust, which allows for long-term investment. For private companies to invest with confidence, so policy consistency, institutional transparency, and long-term stability are essential for this. So I would say a clear direction creates trust, trust drives investment, and investment in turn builds next grid. So I think that maintaining this virtuous cycle is a key to energy security in this decarbonized era. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tetsuya. Elina, that one thing we need to get right immediately to future-proof the grid.
I think I already mentioned that I think we need to think big and we need to think system-wide and think about interconnected Europe-wide systems, and that also means investment. But maybe just to say and build on what the previous speakers mentioned, indeed, it is now time to invest. I mean, I think one of my fellow panelists said that we have to build on what we have, but I think we have to come to a realization that incremental change is no longer an option. We need a step change, and it's about regulation. It's about incentives. It's about market integration, but it's also about finance. And we in the European Investment Bank obviously are thinking about that financing challenge. And we need a varied toolkit, as I mentioned earlier. We need instruments from equity to long-term patient capital to catalyze those step change anticipatory investments that we need. We need blended finance for early stage scale-ups of technologies in the grid space, and indeed to support that important made in Europe value chain and tech suppliers. We need guarantees for de-risking. Our grid package is a good example of such an instrument. And we need also capital markets to be crowded in to allow diversification of financial instruments available to companies to invest, but also to crowd in new investors. I think we need to tie in the pension funds and insurance companies to invest in this asset class. And I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you so much, Elina. Andre?
I think at Europe level, we are already investing, but that's not enough. We are lagging behind what is needed. If we listen to what the International Energy Agency is saying, by 2030, we need almost 600 billion investment. We do 100, more or less, this year, which is not bad. And we need to do it at the system level, interconnecting all the grids from the country.
Those numbers again, I like my numbers. So the International Energy Agency says we need 600
billion euros
in the next 5 years.
Per year.
Per year.
By 2030. So that's the level of investment. That's giving the sense of urgency we need to all of us share together.
And so far, we have 100 invested.
Today,
billion.
I think at Europe level, we have invested 70. The European Investment Bank said they are ready to support up to 100 within the 2 months to come. But that's more or less the range, 70 to 100. Again, technologies are available, making more connectivity between the grids, because the grid is simple. What you produce, you have to use it somewhere, or you have to store it. The storage are arriving, but you need to connect the storage. And then power stability. If we look one-to-one, when you invest €1 in generation, you have to invest almost €0.5 in the grid stability and all the flexibility in it. So more urgently, money coming from Europe and subsidies.
There's billions. Thank you, Andre. Luis, final thoughts? That one thing.
Yeah, I think there's, as a technology company, as Siemens, but I truly believe that all of us as a technology providers, we have a really important role to perform here, to be collaborative among us, sharing, investing the innovations, and also be close to the entities that are making the incentivation or the subsidies or the regulation to understand what can be done faster. So 20% of the effort for the 80% of the impact. And that is not the challenge that we are addressing in the proper way, in my belief. But I understand that we in Europe, we take a longer time to take decisions. So that is also from the mindset to be really with or without the safe belt. The question is, we understand if we have it or not. Yeah. But when we think about time, the question is, when we talk about the AI data centers as an example, or going to networks, battery storage, more than 60% of the battery storage in the world is in China, installed.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So the question is, the technology is there, it exists. We don't decide it to go forward. That's the point. So we need to work in different dimensions of the issues, but in our role as a technology provider, and this initiative, this conference and this association is really relevant to put us all in the same level of understanding to move forward. Because we can talk about problems, but problems don't solve by itself. We need to decide. Not decide is also a decision. And that's many times what I feel, that we need to start to take decisions and make it happen.
Thank you, Luis. Now, Tavi, final thoughts to conclude our session. We're in 1:08, please.
Okay, let's go. So, first off, I will focus on what I know the best. Europe needs a strong skeleton for the energy system. So, of course, best way to do it, buy supercapacitors from Skeleton Technologies. But yes, but that aside, we need a winning mentality. We are always playing catch-up. We are thinking, US and China, they are doing this. Maybe we can do something like that. But we need to see what does winning look like. Out of top 20 tech companies, 0 European companies. We need to make sure that out of the top 20 tech companies, in 20 years' time, we will at least minimum have 5 companies from Europe. We need trillion-dollar tech companies in energy and AI. And of course, let's make sure that out of those 5, I can make sure at least 1 comes from the InnoEnergy portfolio.
Fantastic note to end on. Thank you very much indeed. They've been a fantastic panel. Please join me in thanking them each. Tetsuya Shinohara, Elina Roin, Andre Buruchaki, and Luis Marsal and Tavi Mardiberg. Thank you all very much.